Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We are excited for everyone to be joining us today. And as everybody is joining and getting settled and comfortable with Big Marker, feel free to share in the chat where you are joining us from. This is one of the ways we really like to start all of our webinars because it's always nice to see where other people are joining from, and it gets everybody sort of interacting with each other. While you're doing that, it also allows us some time to talk about, I guess, maybe like the rules of engagement of the webinar, just some things that are important to know. We don't, well, actually what I should say is you don't need to worry about taking notes during the presentation unless you want to and you are a person that really enjoys taking notes, because we are recording this session, and we will be sending you a link to the recording and any resources that have been shared within the presentation. So that will be sent out within a week to the email address that you used to register for our event. Please note that this presentation, the beginning portion of it is already pre-recorded, but the Q&A following is live with a career expert. So if you have questions for the career expert that's here today, please go ahead and put that into the Q&A section of Big Marker rather than the chat section. This will give us the opportunity to prioritize the questions that we answer. We don't often get through all of the questions that come in, but we do get through a lot of them. And we do that with your help, because there is a thumbs up button so that you can give a thumbs up or an upvote if somebody poses a question that you would also like answered. So feel free to check out other people's questions and put your questions in the Q&A, because we will have time to answer those following the slides. So speaking of slides, let's talk about what it is we are going to be discussing today. We're talking about transferable skills, and these are, this topic is one that comes up a lot when we are working with those who are looking for a job and who are looking to change careers. So hopefully this will be a helpful presentation today. We'll go over what transferable skills are. We'll talk about some examples of the most common skills and why they are important to an employer. And we'll briefly talk about how transferable skills can grow your career. And as promised, we will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So what are these transferable skills that we all hear so much about? These skills are those skills that can easily transfer to another job, as they are not necessarily industry specific. Employers know that a lot of these skills that people possess, the candidates that they interview and the employees that they hire, will allow them really to work beyond the job description, because they can apply and lean into some additional skills that maybe were not necessarily first thought of when it comes to the job. Transferable skills can be both hard skills and soft skills. And it's true that hard skills tend to be maybe a little bit more specific to a role or to an industry. And so those are skills like coding, mathematics, even problem solving can kind of go in both of those categories, hard skills and soft skills as well. When we talk with employers about the specific skills that they are looking for, the transferable skills that come up the most frequently, there are about 15 key skills. And I wanted to put this chart here. And again, remember that you'll have a copy of the recording so that you can have this list. We'll also link them in the resources. But we have problem solving, critical thinking, leadership and adaptability, listening skills, flexibility, organization, teamwork, creativity, emotional intelligence, attention to detail, project management, relationship building, computer and tech skills, and of course, communication skills, both written and verbal. All right, so this is a key list of transferable skills. As you might be looking at them and hearing me say them, you probably are identifying some that you have used in the role that you are currently in or previous roles that you might be able to use and leverage as you continue to apply for jobs in your job search. So how do you specifically identify your transferable skills if they don't pop into your head right away? There are some key questions and activities that you really want to ask yourself so you do have a good understanding of what those skills are. So the first thing that I would ask, and I would say when you do this exercise to have a piece of paper or to open a document on your computer and start typing, but really take some time to think about this question or these questions. What do others say you are good at? What are your most confident skills? So when you are working and feeling confident and feeling like you're making progress, what are you doing? What do people ask you to be a part of or to do? Do you get asked to be on committees? Do you get asked for your thoughts on certain things? Is it strategy that comes to mind when people ask you to do things? What kind of problems do you like to solve? And what comes easily to you, but you see others have a hard time with? And what work feels effortless and or makes you feel alive? Now, don't get stuck trying to come up with answering these questions with those 15 words or those 15 skills from the other page. You might say something like, coordinating a project from start to finish, which essentially is project management, right? And so, or program management. So you've got these other skills, or that also infers leadership. So you first want to write down the answers to these questions, whether or not it is the specific skill that we saw on the other slide, or it leans into one of these skills, and you can infer that from the information that you write down. So this is the whole point of this, is to take some time to answer these 6 questions so that you can really have a good handle on what those transferable skills are. There are a couple other resources to get really in depth about identifying your transferable skills. We do have FlexJobs skills assessments on the FlexJobs site. If you are a FlexJobs member, you have access to over 200 skills tests, some of which directly relate to those transferable skills like attention to detail and writing and many others. So you could go there and take some of those skill tests. CareerOneStop.org and offers a skills matcher assessment. There are other resources online, and I know that LinkedIn also does have some skills assessments on their site. Another way to identify your transferable skills is many of you might be have heard of or considering or thinking about or wondering about what ChatGPT is. And this is an AI tool that can really be a resource for you as you are in your job search or looking to change careers. So I actually did this exercise, and we'll go over on the next slide some of these things, but I put in a prompt to ChatGPT that said, what transferable skills does an accountant have? And some of the skills that came up, there were 8, but I copied down, and we'll go over this on the next slide. Analytical, attention to detail, and communication. So what you want to do when you have this list of transferable skills from the questions that you answered, from any of the skills assessments that you did, or from utilizing ChatGPT, you want to apply those skill results to an advanced job search. And then explore your job search results, because you don't just have to look for jobs using the job title. Instead, if you're looking to make a change or find a job or an opportunity in a different industry, using some of these key skills as your key words in your search really can open your eyes to what other opportunities are out there. So when I put analytical, attention to detail, and communication into the FlexJobs jobs database, there were various titles that came up other than accountant. Those titles were implementation specialist, various analyst roles with different titles with the word analyst in, of course, product manager, executive assistant, and learning consultant. So as an accountant, some of those job titles might not be intuitive for somebody to search. And so what you really want to do is leverage these transferable skills to help you gather more information and give you more clarity and focus in your job search and or your career change. So let's take the example of an accountant with the transferable skills that we talked about with the help of ChatGPT. Gosh, that's a mouthful. So again, just a reminder, I used the words analytical, attention to detail, and communication. And I mentioned that one of the jobs that appeared in the search results was implementation specialist. So this implementation specialist, the general summary of the job says the implementation specialist is responsible for evaluating the needs of new and existing clients as they learn ConnectWise software. This role works in partnership with cross-functional teams to ensure clients have the necessary support needed as they become more integrated with ConnectWise products. Okay. So if you look on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the list of essential duties and responsibilities. I have underlined some key transferable skills. In the first bullet, you can see attention to detail, which was one of my search terms. In the second bullet, the word analyze, which analytical was another search term, and communication was a third search term that I use. And if you go to the second to last bullet, effectively communicates to clients on project status. So those three transferable skills that employers are looking for are already in there. As an accountant, you obviously have attention to detail and analytical skills and communication. If you feel strong in communication as being one of your key skills, then this is an appropriate way to search for other jobs. Also, looking at the rest of the bullets, we can identify at least 5 more of the transferable skills we talked about earlier. In the third bullet, it starts with may influence others. Well, what does that mean? That is essentially leadership. All right. In the next bullet, coordinates all aspects of project implementation, working closely with the client and internal project team. Well, that's teamwork. The next bullet has the word solve for their needs, problem solving. The next bullet manages the workflow timeline, which is essentially project management. And finally, conducts kickoff meetings with new clients, which is essentially relationship building. So these transferable skills, there are 8 or so, can really be some building blocks of your resume, cover letter, and go through for your interview preparation. So if you are looking to make a career pivot or just looking for a new job and you really want to highlight some of the other skills that you have aside from the specific accounting skills, you can think about, okay, these are the transferable skills that employers are looking for. Do I have an example of managing a workflow timeline with clients? And if so, that is how you're going to want to focus your bullet or information in your cover letter or talk about during your interview. The same with analyzing, the same with attention to detail. So all of these things, if you can come up with an example of how you demonstrate this skill, that will be really important to show the employer to sort of see you in the role that you are applying to. Now, you'll notice that I did not underline, skills in each of the bullets. And what we suggest is we tell people you do not have to meet 100% of the criteria that is listed in the job posting. If you have 60% or more of the skills that an employer is looking for, you can put together a competitive application. And we underline transferable skills in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullets. There are about 10 or 11 bullets. So we did get to that 60% or more. So this might be something an accountant might look at and think, well, I've never been an implementation specialist, but I do have the skills that this employer is looking for, and I would like to pursue this opportunity. And then you can do that. So hopefully this was helpful. I think it's always really good to see a job posting in action and really underline or highlight the skills that you see so that then you have a framework for how you are going to include that in your material. But why does this matter? Well, it's appealing to employers because it lets them know that you have additional skills that they will be able to tap into. And it also gives them the idea and knowledge that you have more tools in your tool belt than just what is essentially on your resume, or a summation of the roles that you've had in the past, that you have more skills, a broader depth of skills that you can offer in the role. For your career, it's very important because it helps you adapt, it helps you change, and it helps you grow within your career. So you can apply these skills to new challenges in a current role, which could lead to promotions. It could lead to new opportunities. It can lead to growth at your organization. Or if at some point in your career you would like to pivot, maybe from an accountant to an implementation specialist, or change careers completely, keeping track of your transferable skills and really having a solid understanding of how you apply those to the work that you do can really help ease the challenges of a career change or a career pivot. It's probably not going to eliminate all of them, but it definitely can give you that focus and clarity you need to make the move. Okay, so these are the transferable skills. I want to make sure that we have time for questions today. So as you put this into action, please answer those 6 questions for yourself so you can know and understand what key transferable skills you have and identify them. Then the next piece of that is really going to be thinking about how can you illustrate those skills on each of your job applications when you are applying to jobs. And then, of course, many of you know it's important to tailor your resume and cover letter to each job that you apply to. And you can then use your transferable skills in the appropriate way for those jobs where it makes sense. And be confident sharing these skills. If you go through these exercises, you will have clarity on where your strengths are. I know sometimes it's hard for us to talk about our strengths and to really lean into those, but this exercise should really help you identify those and feel really good about how you can discuss the broad skill set that you have and what you can offer an organization. So best of luck to you as you highlight your transferable skills. But before we end today, as promised, we will have a Q&A section in just a minute. But please go ahead and look for the recording within the next few days in your email box. If you don't see it, please check your spam filter because sometimes it does filter there. And if you have any other needs in your job search and we don't have another webinar topic that matches that, please check out our FlexJobs blog, where you will find thousands of articles on any topic that you can imagine that would be important for your job search. So happy to have you here again. Let's see what questions we have coming in and we'll start answering those.
All right, everyone, we are going to move into our Q&A portion now. Before we get started with the Q&A, could someone just let me know in the chat section if you can hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. So my name is Keith Spencer, and I am one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I will be working through your questions with you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Our first question here says, do the skills assessments really help employers select an employee? So that's a really good question. And we can think about, the 2 types of skills assessments that were mentioned during the webinar. There's the skills assessments on FlexJobs website, and then there's the skills assessments on things like Career One Stop. Some of those assessments that will help you identify what your skills are. So let's focus on the second one that I mentioned there first. So employers aren't necessarily going to see the results of those ones that you're taking on external websites to try to determine your own best skills. Those are more for you to try to determine what types of jobs you might want to target. Now, the skills assessments on FlexJobs website, couple things here. So those do show up on your resume profile which if you go to your resume profile, there's a little toggle switch there. You can list it as inactive or active. If you have that listed as active, it is possible for employers to see your profile and therefore see your skills assessment. However, on FlexJobs and other job boards where you can create profiles, employers aren't necessarily investing a lot of time and energy to, search for people's profiles on job boards. Employers typically use job boards like FlexJobs as a way to reach a wider audience, and in the case of FlexJobs, a remote specific audience there. So, that's kind of the more passive job search approach, sort of waiting for employers to find you. I recommend a more proactive, kind of assertive job search where you are identifying job postings and applying to them directly. So employers can see skills assessments on there. Not a lot of employers are looking at the resume profiles. And then, beyond that, they're not necessarily going to see like, oh, this person scored 98% on communication. I want to hire them just on that alone. It might give them some confidence that you do, in fact, communicate well, just as an example, but I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. The skills assessments on FlexJobs, I use them more personally to try to figure out like, okay, am I actually as good at these things as I think I am? Just to try to determine if I need to invest maybe a little bit more time and energy into developing that skill a little bit more in order to really kind of emphasize or showcase that, through my resume, through my cover letter, discuss it in interviews. So that is what I will share about skills assessments. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's go ahead and move on. So, what's the best way to develop new skills while unemployed? So, definitely smart if you are, experiencing a career break. Maybe you had a layoff or took some time away from the workforce for one reason or another. Definitely smart to try to, build up new skills, hone skills that you already have, but there's maybe some room for improvement there. A couple different options here. So, you could use some websites or resources that are out there like Coursera, Udemy. Those are some of the real popular ones. LinkedIn Learning. There are a mixture of free and paid courses on there that you could take to try to brush up some skills. You could even see, if there are some community colleges or universities in your area, you could try taking a course there. Although obviously those would be paid, kind of depends on your financial situation. But then also too, if you're just trying to learn, let's say, for example, a certain software program, like you want to brush up on how to use Microsoft Excel effectively, YouTube is a great place to go. You can watch tutorials, search for videos on how to do certain things with different software programs, and you'll find tons of free videos on YouTube. Same thing, again, with software programs. Like you could go to the company's website, and chances are they have sort of a learning center on their site where you could watch different tutorials. So a lot of different options out there, mixture of paid and free, resources available for you. So a lot of good places that you could check to develop those skills, whether you are unemployed or not at present. Always good to keep kind of honing and developing your skills. So thank you for that question. Okay, so what if you have learned the skills before but haven't had the opportunity to apply it? How would you relate that to a potential employer? Very good question here. Maybe you've done some training, maybe you learned a skill during a degree program or something like that, but you haven't actually had a chance to use it in the quote unquote real world. So, couple different ways here in terms of relating that to a potential employer. So, if I were trying to describe that skill on my resume, I would try to phrase it that I've had extensive training and education in X, Y, and Z. I wouldn't want to give the impression that I've been actively using that skill in my past jobs, but I might have a section on my resume, like my education and training section or something like that, where I have a bullet point describing, some of the things that I've learned about that skill. Or maybe I have somewhere closer to the top of my resume, like a highlighted attribute section, or maybe I describe it in my professional summary, again, just trying to say that like I have extensive training and education in X, Y, and Z. So something like that. Same kind of thing for a cover letter. But then in an interview, the way that I would approach that is I would essentially talk about, what I would do in, that situation using that skill. So let me give you an example. Like I have been trained extensively in conflict management, including how to mediate conflicts between two parties. Thankfully, that situation has not arisen a lot in my life where I've encountered, warring parties that I need to help find sort of a middle ground there. But if an employer asked me about how I would manage conflict between two individuals, I would tell them the things that I would do in that situation. Or if they asked, tell me about a time where you've managed conflict between two individuals, I would say, well, thankfully I haven't encountered that exact situation before in the past. I've been lucky to not encounter that, but if I did, here is what I would do. So, I'm not necessarily going straight out and saying like, hey, guess what? I lack this skill. I've never done it in the real world, but I would show, my extensive knowledge about that instead, and show, what I would do in that situation where I would need to apply that skill. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Very good question there. Thank you for asking that. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Does the 60% still apply in the event that they being the employer state a specific skill is a requirement? So the 60% there, as mentioned in the webinar, when you're looking for job postings, if you match, at least 60% of the qualifications, chances are you're a solid fit for that role and it's worth applying. So this is a really good question here. In job descriptions, you typically have some type of mixture of different things listed, right? There's usually some duties and responsibilities of the role. Then they will sometimes list, explicitly sort of the qualifications of the person they're hoping to hire. And then sometimes that is divided into, preferred qualifications and required qualifications. So what I will say in terms of the 60% rule here, if you are missing maybe one required qualification, it can still be worth applying for that job. Now, if you're missing multiple required qualifications, you might want to skip that one and move on to a different one that doesn't have so many requirements. But the 60% rule applies more to the sort of preferred qualifications or the duties and responsibilities listed. So I'm really glad you asked that, because you do want to differentiate there. Again, if you're missing multiple of the required qualifications, it might not be worth your time. You still could apply, but there is that, strong chance that you might be passed over for that role. So really good question there. Hopefully that response was helpful for you. Okay, so what if my past skills aren't transferable? Should I ask the employer that question in the interview? So let me answer the first part of that, or excuse me, the second part of that question first. I would not ask the employer that in the interview. You never want to sort of highlight the things that you are lacking to the employer. You want to focus on the things that you do have, how they could be relevant for this position, and what you could do to benefit the employer and do that job well. So second part of that question, kind of a no there. I would not necessarily ask that of the employer. Now, in terms of whether or not your past skills are transferable, you want to think of this in two different ways. You probably have some very like job specific skills, or some hard or technical skills. Like let me use like nursing as an example. If you're trying to get out of the nursing field, there's going to be a lot of job specific things that you do in nursing that aren't going to be transferable. However, there are going to be a lot of, like soft skills. Soft skills is another term for transferable skills. So you want to think about those soft skills that you do possess. So your ability to work with a team, communicate effectively with others, keep your work organized, manage your time wisely, manage your calendar effectively, build relationships. Think about those soft skills that you have that are going to be transferable, because you would be hard pressed to find a job out there that doesn't include at least some soft skills that are transferable to other fields. So, really take some time to reflect on that. I'm sure that you're right that you maybe have some of those job specific or hard or technical skills that aren't going to be incredibly transferable, but try to think about those soft skills that you have that could be transferable. Excuse me. For example, so I started my career as a teacher, and my first role out of teaching or out of education was in a career development related role, which is what I have now done for a decade plus in my career. So what I tried to do was emphasize that in terms of career development, I might have been missing sort of the content. I wasn't super familiar yet at that point in my career with resumes and cover letters and how to interview effectively and all that I've since learned and mastered. But I was able to show, like, listen, I explain things well. I can make complex topics simple for people. I communicate well. I build relationships. All of those transferable skills that I was able to emphasize to move into that role. So that's my recommendation there. A little bit of a long-winded answer there. I apologize, but very good question. Thank you. Okay, and then we have time for one or two more here. So this was an observation, not a question, but I do want to address it. This person said that they recently read an article that stated that employers are leery about Chat GPT resumes. Yes, so very good observation there, and it is worth addressing here. So I have spent a lot of time researching and using Chat GPT because it is important. Like, it's going to be AI in general and Chat GPT as well, like, are going to be transforming how work is done in the future. So I've been investing a lot of time and energy in this. And in terms of Chat GPT and resumes, I do not recommend having Chat GPT write your resume for you and using that exact text. Now, you could paste your resume into ChatGPT and ask it to revise it for you. But if I were to do that, I would then read what ChatGPT wrote for me. I would sort of cross reference it with what I had previously written on my resume. And then I would take the best of both worlds and kind of combine them together in my own language. So, I use ChatGPT to do the heavy lifting for me, give me some good ideas, generate some language that I could potentially use, but I would never use the exact text that ChatGPT is providing. Couple reasons there. It sounds a little robotic when it's writing out the text. It sounds somewhat like a human would, but not entirely. So I would want to inject some of my own style and tone into that writing. ChatGPT also will fabricate some things or make some things up. Like, if I said, please revise my resume to help make my accomplishments stand out more, well, then it's going to just make up accomplishments that I didn't actually achieve. I've seen this in practice that ChatGPT will do this. So you want to make sure that you're revising the information it provides. Again, using it kind of as an idea generator, get you thinking along the right lines there, but not using the exact text from ChatGPT. So just wanted to throw that out there, but very good observation that you bring up. Okay, so we are a couple minutes over time here, so we are going to go ahead and draw to a close. I do apologize that we weren't able to answer everyone's question today, but I appreciate you all being here. Thank you to those who asked questions. That's always really helpful. I enjoy engaging with our webinar attendees in that way. So thank you again for being here today. I really hope that this was helpful for you. You'll see in that handouts tab that we do have the list of upcoming FlexJobs events. So do be sure to check out any future webinars that were coming up. And actually, I will mention that on June 28th, we do have a Chat GPT entirely focused webinar coming out. So if you're interested in that topic and you want to check out that webinar or others, please feel free to do so. So thank you again for being here today. Hope this was helpful for you and that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.